This is the story of something truly terrifying that happened to me a few years ago. I am going to tell you about the scariest neighbors I have ever had. If you think you know what fear is, wait until you hear this. It all started when I moved into a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The place was cheap, and I thought I had found a great deal. It was an old building with creaky wooden floors and dimly lit hallways, but I didn't mind. I was happy to have my own space. At first, everything seemed normal. The neighbors were quiet and the street was peaceful. But then, strange things started happening. I lived on the second floor, and right across from my apartment was another unit. The door was always locked, and I never saw anyone coming or going. But at night, I would hear noises, faint whispers, the sound of furniture moving, and sometimes even low, guttural breathing. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, or maybe the pipes in the old building. But then, things got worse. One night, I was lying in bed when I heard a knock on my door. It was a slow, deliberate knock, 3 loud taps. I checked the time. It was 2:13 a.m. My heart pounded in my chest. Who would be knocking at this hour? I hesitated, then got up and looked through the peephole. But there was no one there. I opened the door just a little, peeking outside. The hallway was empty. A chill ran down my spine. I closed the door and locked it again, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. Maybe it was just some kids playing a prank. The next day, I saw an old woman from the apartment below mine. She had lived in the building for years, so I decided to ask her about my neighbors. "Oh dear," she whispered, looking around nervously. "You shouldn't ask about them." Her reaction sent shivers down my spine. "Why?" I asked. She leaned in closer. "Because they're not normal." That night, I kept my lights on. I tried to convince myself that the old woman was just superstitious, but deep inside, I felt something was wrong. Around midnight, I heard a scraping sound from the hallway. It was like someone was dragging something heavy across the floor. My body froze. Slowly, I tiptoed to my door and peered through the peephole. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. A man stood in the hallway, facing my door. He was tall and thin, wearing old, tattered clothes. But that wasn't the worst part. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle as if his neck had been broken, and his eyes, they were completely black. I covered my mouth to stop myself from screaming. He stood there, staring at my door, not moving. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. After what felt like an eternity, he slowly turned and walked toward the apartment across from mine. He reached the door, and without using a key, he pushed it open and stepped inside. The door shut behind him. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I decided I couldn't live there anymore. I started packing my things, determined to leave as soon as possible. But that evening, something even more terrifying happened. As I was stuffing my clothes into a bag, I heard my door creak open. My heart stopped. I had locked it. I was sure I had locked it. Slowly, I turned around. The door was wide open, and standing in the doorway was the man from last night. He was inside my apartment. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. He stared at me with those empty black eyes, his head still tilted at that horrible angle. Then, in a voice that sounded like it came from deep within the earth, he whispered, "You should have left sooner." Then the lights flickered, and everything went dark. I don't remember what happened after that. When I woke up, it was morning, and I was lying on the floor. My apartment looked the same, except for one thing. The door to the apartment across from mine was wide open. I grabbed my things and ran out of there without looking back. I never even asked for my security deposit back. I just wanted to be as far away from that place as possible. A week later, I got curious. I searched online for any information about that building. What I found made my skin crawl. Years ago, a family had lived in that apartment across from mine. A man, his wife, and their son. But one night, the man went insane. He killed his wife and son before hanging himself in the hallway. The neighbors reported strange noises coming from the apartment for years after that. Some people who had lived in my unit before me had also left suddenly, just like I did. I don't know what I saw that night. I don't know if it was a ghost or something even worse. But I do know one thing. Not all neighbors are human. And some doors should never be opened.